Boom. All right, what's going on, you guys? It's Royce Jacob. Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to Stock Talk, series I make whenever I feel it's necessary, where we cover some exciting news and price action in regard to some of the stocks we've been talking about on the channel. Today's case, you know what it is. We're covering some of our good old COVID-related biotechs. Pretty bittersweet day in the sector. I'm going to be honest. I'm sure many of you know why already, but we will get into it. Let's get straight into it. As always, we'll go over each topic that we're going to be discussing, then we'll dive into each one individually. In front of us, of course, we will be taking a look at all of these stocks on our watch list on our right here, as you can see on TradingView. Moderna, Sorrento, Inovio, NVAX, BioTech, and VXRT in that order. Again, we will take a look at each of these. I will let you guys know what I'm thinking from a technical perspective. In terms of news, we will just cover a few pieces in regard to Moderna and Sorrento. So Moderna says its coronavirus vaccine won't be ready until 2021. This news definitely dented the stock today. Very disappointing considering Moderna was up almost 5% in after hours and pre-market trading today. And again, it just faded out over the course of the trading day, and this news really just kind of made a dent on it. The fundamentals are unchanged. I'm still fundamentally very bullish on Moderna, but this did definitely affect sentiment. It's such a bummer, especially considering this news was so solid that led it to be up 5% in after hours and pre-market. Moderna's COVID vaccine generated strong antibodies in the elderly, what it means for the stock. So again, this news came out so bullish. This is so fundamentally bullish for what they're doing, creating a vaccine. And great news, again, led the stock to go up almost 5% in after hours, pre-market and whatnot. And again, this news really dented it. Such bad timing here. But again, you guys, sometimes the market throws you curveballs. You just have to adapt. You have to get used to it because that's the game. All right, so that's the news on Moderna. Moving on to Sorrento news. This is a very solid article, okay? So 17 reasons to be excited about Sorrento Therapeutics and one big reason to be very worried. So shout out to Brian O'Reilly, PhD of the Motley Fool. I'd like to validate that. But again, this is a great article. It's a little on the longer side. So I mean, if you guys don't want to listen to me read through it, just go read through it for yourself. Especially if you're invested in Sorrento, you guys, this is the stuff you need to know. If you're invested in the company, especially heavily, like I am personally, you should know what's going on here. And this article did a very good job at that. Okay, so we will read through this together prior to looking at Sorrento. All right, so that's it in terms of news. And yeah, before we get into it, you guys, as always, please give the video a like if you do go on to gain value from it. And if you're invested in any of the stocks we're talking about today, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here and want to catch more content like this. And of course, check out my complete portfolio daily newsletter for a complete breakdown of my entire portfolio that I update every trading day. With every update, I also send an email newsletter explaining my thoughts. All right, so first link in the description. If you guys don't want to wait for the stock talks or biotech booms like this, I do update you guys on these stocks because I'm positioned in them almost every day. So if you want a daily update on these stocks as well as literally every other position in my portfolio, check it out. First link in the description. I appreciate it if you do. If not, no worries at all. So that said, let's get into it. Again, Moderna, we of course have to cover the fundamentals prior to the technicals. But first, let's just actually look at what Moderna did today so you guys can know what I'm talking about. So let's go like 5 minutes, really zoom in here. Like a little wild. So you can see here Moderna this morning really gapped up so nicely. Again, it was gapped up after market following that great news in regard to a positive response in elderly patients. But again, over the course of the day, just fizzled out. This is where the news dropped. You just see those red bars, those 3 black crows right there. Bummer to see, but again, you guys, let's just get straight into it. So Moderna CEO Stéphane Bancel said Wednesday that his company's coronavirus vaccine won't be available for widespread distribution until at least spring 2021, according to Financial Times. Why it mattered, Bancel told FT that the drug maker will not seek emergency authorization from the FDA approval for its vaccine to use in frontline medical workers and at-risk individuals until November 25th at the earliest. He added that the company would not seek FDA approval for use in general population until late January. If the vaccine is proven safe and effective, approval is unlikely to come until at least a late March or early April. What they're saying, I think a late first quarter, early second quarter approval is a reasonable timeline based on what we know from our vaccine, Bancel said, according to Financial Times. The big picture. Moderna's vaccine is one of 4 that are currently in late-stage testing in people in the U.S. The Trump administration in August announced that it purchased 100 million doses of Moderna's experimental coronavirus vaccine for $1.5 billion or $15 per dose. The president has repeatedly claimed that a vaccine will be available for widespread distribution before the end of the year, though CDC Director Robert Redfield testified to Congress that it's more likely a vaccine won't be available until the second or third quarter of next 2021. So this pisses me off. Okay, so it makes perfect sense to me that Trump did this. It's very expected. This is, I mean, comes as no shocker at all that he was telling everybody that a vaccine was going to come out prior to the elections. This guy wants to get reelected. Obviously, he's going to say whatever he has to appease the American public, to bring optimism. And you guys know, I always support optimism. But with something as crucial, as critical as a vaccine, you have to be patient. These things have to take time. You can't just inject random things into people because that'll cause a whole lot more issues than whatever's going on right now. Okay. And again, this hasn't changed my fundamental view on Moderna in the slightest. Moderna is still the leader in this race in my mind. Keep in mind, you guys, I've said this many times, I just need to say it every time. Moderna is my horse in this race, all right? I'm biased towards Moderna, so know that. But that's for good reason. We've been studying them. We've been talking about them for months now. I do believe wholeheartedly that they're in first place. They are the leader in this race to a vaccine. They were earliest to phase 3s. They're one of only 4 companies in phase 3s. And again, they released this great news yesterday, which is still just validates everything I feel about Moderna. I have felt about Moderna fundamentally. But again, you guys, this just sucks. Like, this timing is super unfortunate. And again, you guys, sometimes the market throws you curveballs. Get back up stronger. You got to get used to it because curveballs are thrown at you sometimes. I was super excited about my Moderna position this morning, my Moderna calls to be specific. And again, I just got punched in the face. But again, punches build thick skin. Get back up, get up stronger. All right, so let's go over this piece that was very bullish. So Moderna's COVID vaccine generated strong antibodies in the elderly, what it means for the stock. Moderna announced that elderly people in the first trial of its COVID-19 vaccine generated high levels of antibodies against the coronavirus, on a par with younger test subjects and patients who have recovered from the illness. Protection of vulnerable groups like the elderly will be a major factor when government regulators consider an emergency authorization of Moderna's mRNA 1273 vaccine upon completion of its phase 3 study in the next month or two. And I quote, given the increased morbidity and mortality of COVID-19 in older and elderly adults, this data gives us optimism in demonstrating mRNA 1273's protection in this population, so Moderna medical chief Tazosks in the Tuesday night announcement. So again, this is great news. And once again, you guys, you have to be patient with this. These things take time, and these companies are working faster, to my knowledge, than towards a successful vaccine than any other vaccine has been formulated historically. All right, so these guys are going fast. These things take time. Anyone who really expected, and again, I love optimism, but anyone who expected a successful and like widely distributed vaccine prior to elections just hasn't been doing their due diligence in this sector. All right, so again, this news came as no surprise to me, and it really does upset me. Just kind of it just shows the ignorance in the market right now, which is, you guys know, has been making me upset in general. But again, you guys, Moderna is still on such a fundamentally strong track in my mind, and this news just validates that. Again, the elderly, those are the people that are at the highest risk. Those are the people that you need to target the most. If anyone gets the vaccines, it should be them. So this is extremely bullish, once again, from a fundamental perspective. And I'm still so long-term bullish on Moderna, even if the short term has been a little dented by this news. All right. So that said, let's take a look at Moderna on a long-term time frame. Again, poor Moderna. I mean, that sucks to see. Pisses me off. But let's go back to the 4-hourly. Take a look at this little just this upward trajectory. I'm still extremely bullish on Moderna from a technical perspective, you guys. So again, it did break out of this descending triangle. It did break out of this little bull flag as well, this cyan bull flag right here, breaking out to the upside. And I do still, even with this news, you guys, I still believe that Moderna, solely from a technical perspective, will reach and retest this cyan line. If it does, maybe it will go sideways. I can't believe it'll fall lower because, again, this isn't surprising news. I think this was just kind of a shock piece, but I can't believe all that many people thought. Please let me know down below, you guys, if you thought genuinely that a vaccine, I won't judge you, that a vaccine was going to come prior to election time. I think great news could come out prior to election time, but a vaccine, like a widely distributed vaccine, once again, that's going out to the general public, it just doesn't make logistical sense. Okay, so again, you guys, I do think from a technical perspective, Moderna will ultimately come up and test the cyan line. If it comes up by, say, mid-October, again, you guys, this is a pretty steep line, so depending on where it decides to test this, say mid-October, October 15th, it would bring it up to $90. Okay, so again, you guys, it does depend where Moderna hits the cyan line, but from a technical perspective, I do believe that Moderna will ultimately retest this line. Maybe it'll take forever. Maybe we have to extend this out to next year, but at some point, I do think Moderna is, again, it's still in an uptrend. Moderna is in an uptrend now that it's broken out of this downtrend, and I do think it makes obvious sense to use this line that was once a very strong line of support as a new line of resistance, at least in the short to medium term. All right. So I'm still betting on that. Let's hope for the best there. Again, you guys, if you want to follow the progress on these calls, know exactly which calls I have. newsletter portfolio. All right, so that is Moderna. Let's take a look at Sorrento now, and then we'll again we'll cover this piece of news on Sorrento, and then we'll just cover all of these quickly after this more in-depth analysis on Sorrento. Okay, so Sorrento here, it's funny, I haven't changed these lines, and it's pretty well, it's funny that it's using this line that I just kind of randomly drew as like a kind of a line of support here. But again, you guys, every time I draw these lines, I don't know exactly what's going to happen. No one does. No one, if anyone acts like they do, they're lying. I just drew these lines as a general idea of what the trend direction would look like, and about how long I would just intuitively would think this would take to play out. And it's looking pretty good so far. All right, it's beaten me at some points, but again, it's sitting literally right on this arrow. I haven't changed this, you guys. You can go watch the last one. But again, you guys, my short-term price target for Sorrento is still $14. And again, it spent a lot of time around there on its ride up. I think it makes sense.